Welcome to the Choir Conductor podcast. Each episode features a conversation with people in the choir or music education profession. I am your host, Zach Thompson. Let's start the show. My guest today is Andrew Smith. Andrew is a veteran choir teacher at Evangelical Christian School in Memphis, Tennessee. He holds a bachelor's degree in music theory from Union University and a master of music in choral conducting from Austin Peay State University. He is also active in the music department at Bellevue Baptist Church. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Delighted to be with you.
Yeah, so glad to have you on. We kind of briefly crossed paths. I went into Austin Peay kind of right after the year that you left. And you can think fortunately or unfortunately because of your legacy of doing a thesis, I was the next person in line to have to do a thesis. So thank you for
Yes,
that.
I was told that future master's students would hate me for generations for that.
That's okay. It was worth it, and I think, it's a good thing to do. But I know the person after me, who was also on this podcast, Justin Nelson, he had to do it as well. But maybe saying have to do it is a bit strong, but it's, strongly recommended, I guess.
Glad I could break the ice for that.
Yeah. Well, let's start by having you talk about your musical upbringing.
Well, my parents were both music majors in college, and that's actually how they met. And my dad is a minister of music at a church, pretty small rural town where I grew up. And so I was surrounded by music. My mom was a piano teacher in the town and had a ton of students coming in and out that way, and then was involved in church music all my life. I didn't have a whole lot of I guess I would say I was exposed to a good bit of just kind of high church music, not necessarily classical music. I didn't listen to symphonies and stuff like that a whole lot growing up, but a lot of just, I would call it very good quality church music at a young age. I took piano for a while. I took from my mom, which we both in retrospect have realized that was not a good idea.
Yeah.
It did not work well. I suppose there are some son-mother situations in which lessons by mom would be a good situation, but it just did not work for us. And I think part of it was, and this is something that I'm trying to think through with my kids, because we've got our kids now already involved in musical lessons, but we're trying to outsource that. And we're realizing part of it is the fact that every time I practiced, I had my teacher in the kitchen going, no, that's a B flat,
Oh, yeah.
natural. And my teacher was always listening to me practice. And so I didn't have that freedom to just kind of hit wrong notes and keep going anyway or whatever. You know what I mean? I just kind of had that constant correction, where I think an atmosphere of correction in the lesson, but then go practice and figure it out and make mistakes and work on your own is something I didn't get to experience. And so piano lessons didn't work very well at home. But I did have really good vocal training, I feel like, from my parents, and they are both excellent singers. And so I was trained to think well about that. And then I guess I was a junior in high school. And now I was homeschooled, which was unique for me. And so I didn't have choir at school, or really a whole lot of community opportunities either, because we were in such a small town. But in 11th grade, I was able to go to a church camp, a church music camp at Carson Newman College, wherever that is, somewhere in Tennessee. I don't even remember anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland, Tennessee, I think. And for the first time, it was one of those deals, almost like a festival or something, where you bring, you kind of learn the music on your own, and then you get there, and there's a very good clinician that works with the whole group. And that's the first time I sang with more than a group of about 30 or 40 people in the choir or whatever in my church. And so there were then hundreds of us singing, and that camp just absolutely changed my life. Sing with a couple other hundred kids my age, and to sing just excellent literature, just absolutely changed my life and just made me hungry for more of that. So I started researching, looking for that type of music to listen to because I just loved it. Um, I remember specifically doing Bruckner's Os Justi
Okay.
with that group, and man, I mean, just it just changed my life. I mean, this some of the chordal movements in that were just things I'd never experienced singing before, and so began becoming very fascinated in music theory and stuff like that. I found that very fascinating. I feel like at this camp there was like a little theory class or something like these little classes you'd go to, and that was super fascinating. And since both my parents were music majors, they were able to feed me all I wanted, and so I started learning about key signatures and keys. And it really wasn't until 11th grade till I really delved deeply into those things, but became very fascinated with music theory and classical music and a lot of these types of things. And I think it was kind of then in about 11th grade that it kind of sealed my destiny as far as wanting to go into music. Um, which made a lot of sense for me, because both my parents did that. But I really didn't grow up being told or thought in any way that that's what I would necessarily do. Like, well, both
Mm-hmm.
your parents do music, so I'll do music. I wasn't necessarily trying to think that way. My brother, just a little younger than me, he went on to be a pilot. So we chose totally different career paths. It's not like we were both forced into music, but that's just kind of the direction I found, fell in love with, and he fell in love with a different art, he'll say. So yeah, anyway, so that's kind of my upbringing, I guess.
And then, so what brought you to Union University?
Well, I guess that's both my parents went there and they met there. And
Oh,
actually,
okay.
as a junior, like a part of my interest in just becoming so enthralled with all this music stuff is I actually got to go start taking lessons at Union with my parents' previous voice professor there at Union, Dr. Blass. And so I started traveling. It was about a 2 hour drive to Jackson, but I would make that trip once a week to go and have lessons with him. So I started doing that my junior year, and through my junior and senior year did that, and we would meet at the college and got to meet the other college professors there, and I enjoyed it there. Both my parents went there, so it just kind of happened.
And then, so you chose music theory degree originally?
No, I didn't. I actually chose church music originally. That's what my dad did, and I liked the idea of it, so I just kind of chose that. So I didn't know what else to do, so I chose that, and then after taking theory for a little while, I just loved it, and actually hadn't gotten into the. I actually never even took any of the actual church music classes, but after I think my freshman year of theory, just loving it, and I wouldn't even say I'm great at it. I don't think it comes more naturally to me than it does to your average person. It's not like I was extra good at it. I just enjoyed it. In fact, sometimes I think almost some things take me longer to learn than your average person. I don't, I'm not a person who's naturally just so intelligent that I just catch on to things quickly. I feel like sometimes I would have to study harder to get the same grades that some of my peers did,
Mm-hmm.
but I enjoyed it, and so to me, it was worth putting that work into. And I loved every minute of it. And then going on to Austin P and got to take with Dr. Wood, who and just really enjoyed every theory class I've ever taken. And it's been good since then, even though I didn't really continue the theory route. I now teach AP theory at the high school level, and so I really enjoy getting to teach that class. And yeah, I just love that. I love the performance aspect of music, but also the more academic, I guess, side of it in the theory stuff. I really enjoy that as well. So
Yeah, and
been
that's
glad for that decision.
that's great that you get to do both at your current school.
Yeah.
And so, what made you decide to do choral conducting at Austin P? Did you go straight from undergrad to graduate school?
Uh, yes, kind of, not really, but yeah, I did. I mean, nothing else meaningful in between. So what made me decide that was actually quite a decision for me my senior year, because since my undergraduate degree was in theory, that was very heavily focused on composition. And so I wrote a lot of music my junior and senior year of college. And so my senior year, I performed a vocal recital because I was vocal emphasis. That was my instrument.
Mm-hmm.
but I also put on a full composition recital, and I talked some of my college buddies into forming a choir, and they would sing my choral pieces. And then I found some people to sing my solo works, and some instrumentalists to sing my, rhapsody for piano and violin, and just all these things. Kind of cajoled people into helping me out with that, and I really loved it. So I decided I wanted to go on to graduate school. I don't really know why I decided that either. I just thought, hey, I love school, and
Uh-huh.
and so I loved school, and I thought I just want to, since I can stay in school, I'm going to keep doing it. So I enjoyed it that much. So I decided to go on to graduate school, but I had thought about doing composition. I had a theory degree and had enough composition experience. I felt like I would be set up well to do that, and I had some other one of my other good friends that was a theory major went on to do that right before me, and he was doing well. So I thought that's what I'm going to do. But I really enjoyed conducting as well. And even just in that experience of conducting the people doing my choral works, I just loved working with them and just thought that was such a fun thing. But really, to me, it came down to just realizing my personality type, I really think. And I look back now and realize that I really chose well, but I came to realize that the lifestyle of a composer is so much more introverted, and it's sitting down with a pen and paper, not really so much more a computer these days. Even though I like composing on pen and paper a lot, so it really was that for me. Just a note staff and a pencil.
Mm-hmm.
But it was me alone with the piano, composing for hours. And and then, of course, the life of a conductor is with people all the time. Almost every bit of what I do is with people, and I just discovered that I'm more of a people person, and that I get a charge from being with people and experiencing the music with the people. And as a composer, I got a charge from all those hours of composition paying off when I finally got to hear someone perform my work. But that was a lot of work put into that one little bit of charge of finally getting to hear someone perform it, and I did enjoy that. But I realized so much more that I'm a people person, and that I really enjoy the just daily interaction of being with my students and my choirs, and that really does it for me. So I'm glad. And also, I've discovered that that would be the best opportunity. I kind of came to a point where I said, well, I want to be able to do both. Where can I do both? I could either possibly do both and be a composer primarily and maybe somehow find choirs to perform my works, or if I am a choir director and then I compose something, then boom, I've got my test choir right there. So I've got a built-in way of composing. I've got people to compose for. I have a choir every day, and it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I get the notion to go put pen to paper, I can write something for my own choir. So I really do get the best of both worlds that way.
Yeah, that's great. And are you still writing some things currently?
Sometimes, really, what I've been doing more recently is arranging,
Mm-hmm.
finding works, and I've got an a cappella group, for instance, and so I've discovered in my brief time of doing a cappella groups that finding works that are specifically written for that specific group with their strengths and weaknesses goes a long way to the success of that song.
Yeah.
And so instead of, for the a cappella group especially, instead of just getting online and looking and finding works for them to do, we'll discuss a song they want to do, and then I might go write it, or I might get somebody else to do it. But it's been a lot more arranging than composing, I would say, these days. But
Uh-huh.
I find that fun too.
Well, that's great. And so you're at a school in Memphis, Tennessee. Is it kind of near the city, in the city, or is it a suburb outside of Memphis?
Yeah, it's a suburb. It's a suburb of Memphis in Cordova, and so it, yeah, yeah, not exactly downtown or anything like
Yeah.
that.
And so Evangelical Christian School, and you are both middle school and high school choir director.
That's right. Yeah.
And
So I do the middle school choir and the high school choir. And so if they're not prepared for the high school choir, I have no one else to blame but
yeah.
myself. So that's the good and the bad of that.
Yeah. That can be tough. And is it a larger school, or what's your how big are your choirs these
Yeah.
days?
Well, I have this is I'm heading into my second year at this school. So uh, part of the reason, so I had been at a different school here in Memphis for about 5 years, and now I'm at this school. Part of what really drew me to this school is that I felt like their potential, just institutionally, and the resources they have, and the talent that they have in the school, was just so underdeveloped. Like I looked at the the quality of the school, and I just thought to myself, why do I not hear about this choir coming out of this school? I
Hmm.
hear about their sports teams, and it's a school that has a very good standing in the area and has a lot of reputation in a lot of ways. And I just kept thinking, why don't they have a choir that matches that same reputation they have in the other areas? And and so once there was a position open there, I feel like they have felt that it was so underdeveloped, and I saw that as well, and I see just huge potential there, and so that was really attractive to me, and so it's been exciting in this first year trying to develop some of that potential and just realize some of that. But there's a lot of talent there, and I do love the idea of having middle school, and I get to work with them for even 3 years. The middle school is sixth, seventh, and eighth, so I get those students for 3 years before they get to high school.
Okay.
And so my hope is that once I've seen a few students go through my teaching for 2 or 3 years, that I really start to develop something in the next few years here.
Yeah.
School
That's
is school. To answer your original question, I think there's around 800 students, and that's junior K through 12. So it is not a
Oh,
huge school.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and so my choirs this year, and again, the program is quite undeveloped, I think, for what its potential is. But this year in my basic choir, so I've got two high school choirs. I've got a basic choir that has this year had 15 in it, and an a cappella group that had another 13 or 14 in it. Um, and so, but for next year, luckily, I've seen the numbers over double for that group.
Great.
The basic choir enrollment right now is just over 40, and then the a cappella group will always remain smaller, but it's going to be around 15 this year. So it's been nice. I feel like I'm already kind of seeing some momentum, and I feel like we had a really great year this year. My a cappella group, we were awarded a superior at the regional festival, WTVMEA West Tennessee Vocal Music Educators Association, which qualified us to go on to the state. So then we went to the state ACDA festival and scored a superior there as well. So
Great.
a lot of success with that group, and so I feel like some of that's paying off in the enrollment for next year. I feel like a big part of my job is recruitment, and
Sure.
that's one of those things. I don't know how I would have gone. Now, I did not go through an educational track in any of my studies. So my undergraduate was a degree in music theory, and then my graduate school was choral conducting. So nowhere along the line was I really thick into education classes. So maybe in
Hmm.
education classes, they teach you more about programming, program building, and recruitment and stuff like that. Because these kids they just have to take one art elective, and they've got quite a few other choices. So I feel like I have to really work to make choir appealing, and that's a big part of what I have to do, because you just simply have to have numbers to do good literature.
Right.
You've got to have good literature to convince numbers to come. You've got to have good quality, so it takes numbers to make quality, and it takes qualities to keep the numbers. So
Yeah.
it can kind of be this catch 22 that can work for you or against you if one of those kind of suffers. um, so yeah, that has been a challenge of mine, is figuring out how to recruit, and part of that, what I do. Sorry, I'm kind of getting off on a rabbit
No,
trail here.
that's fine.
So yeah, so something I've figured out is that so much of my job is on the recruiting side of convincing people to take choir, because I've got to have numbers to create good quality in a choral program, but then I've got to have good quality to draw the numbers. So those two have to feed each other, and if either one is missing, then the other is hard to come by. So just trying to figure out how to be a class that people want to take. And that can be hard academically, because to be academically rigorous is difficult while at the same time being attractive to students, because students, as you know, teaching, they will almost always take the path of least resistance. They'll do the
Yes.
easiest thing possible. And so you can either be that easy pushover teacher, and maybe I could get tons of people to sign up that way, but then we're never going to really accomplish anything. Or I can be that stiff-nosed slave driver, and no one will sign up for my class the next year. And so I feel like to veer off the road on either direction is to my detriment. So finding the balance of that, I feel like, is the art in teaching,
It's tough.
outside of music. That's the educational art. Um, and I feel like a lot of that I've learned is just being the type of person that they want to take. I feel like I've learned that students they'll take the person, not the class.
Yep.
Mr. Butler is a teacher, and they all say, "Oh, we all want to take Mr. Butler." Well, Mr. Butler teaches art, but that is secondary. They're not passionate about art. They really don't care what his class is. If he taught underwater basket weaving, they would sign up for it because it's Mr. Butler and everybody loves Mr. Butler. So being that person, I feel like is a lot of it, and that's difficult. So, but just trying to engage the students in a way where I show interest in them, and recruiting, and getting the guys is, I feel like surely I'm not the only one who has to work hard to get guys to sign up for choir.
Yep.
But so I do things like, there's a show, are you smarter than a fifth grader? Well, sometimes I'll this year I did this little thing, are you more athletic than the choir teacher? And so I had a day where I invited a lot of guys to the gym, and we just did like sports stuff. And part
Uh-huh.
of what I'm trying to do is just to find some relatability with them. If they leave going, "Hey, the choir guy," in high school, people would have actually thought of me more as a jock probably than an artist. So I've
Uh-huh.
got that in my background. So I try to use that in my favor. So I'll play basketball with them or whatever, and a lot of them I'll beat. So then they like, "Oh, you got beat by the choir teacher," or whatever. Because I don't know why, but they just assume the art teachers are like going to be non-athletic, I guess.
Right.
So that's just a way I try to engage the guys, and if they can walk away, hopefully going, "Well, he's kind of a cool guy," then to me, the likelihood of them signing up for choir drastically increases.
Sure.
And I think I've seen that this year. This year, in the concert choir I have, my mixture of guys and girls was, I told you I had 15. I had 14 girls and one guy, and
Nice.
that's what I inherited this year. And so that's the class I inherited this year. Next year, luckily, we've got 40 guys, and it's a little over a third. Sorry, 40. I think 43 total people,
Hmm.
and a little over a third of them are guys. So I'm going to have a really good
That's
mix.
great.
And so hopefully something I've been doing there and trying to engage guys is hopefully going to be working for me. And so. Yeah, I don't even remember the original question you asked me at the beginning of all that.
That's okay. It doesn't matter. And so I think I saw something on Facebook. I think you posted a recording of your a cappella group recently.
Yeah, yeah,
What's
that was well, we've got a video production class. So I went to the video production class teacher a number of months ago, and I just said, "Hey, could we like make a little music video kind of thing?" And so they said, "Yeah." So we cut that. We actually ended up. It was during the craziest time of month, so we didn't have nearly the time we wanted to put into it.
mhm.
But we wanted to. I wanted to go ahead and do something. I mean, it doesn't have the production quality and all that I would have liked, but it's at least a start. And I think the good experience of just doing that, and everybody kind of thought it was fun and kind of turned out neat, will go in the future. Uh, so we recorded vocals, and then we had them sing to themselves for the video. So we're not exactly hearing them live.
Mhm.
If you'll notice on the video, the microphone that's sitting up there is not even plugged in. They didn't even put a cord in it. So they
Yeah, I was looking at the mic like,
put a
wow, that is
cord.
a great mic. It can pick all of them up.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did that in the choir room. I did the actual recording in the choir room. No, actually, what I did is I actually took our recording of us singing that song at the state festival.
Oh, there you go.
and I used it as the basis. That's what they kind of lip sync to, if you will, for the
Mhm.
recording, for the video recording. And then we went back to our choir room and we recorded ourselves over it. So what you're hearing is probably 20% of what we did at festival and probably 80% what we re-recorded in the choir room, kind of all mixed together. I use Logic, which GarageBand, so it's the sister product to GarageBand,
Sure.
and uh, and so I've been working. We also made another. We cut our first single. That's the way I kind of did the PR for it,
Uh-huh.
with that acapella group. The acapella group is called Flight.
Flight.
Flight. Yeah, our mascot is the eagle,
Oh, okay.
and it has a scriptural basis as well. We'll soar on wings like eagles. So Flight is the name of the group, and so we recorded our first single. It's a Taylor Swift song, but we had an alum actually do an arrangement of it, and we recorded that. But we did it in the choir room. We brought in a professional. Well, there's a lot of schools in Memphis that do
Yeah.
acapella recordings,
It's
and
huge,
most of
especially because you have Briarcrest there.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, Briarcrest, another Christian school, just really right down the street from us. And they go to a studio when they do all that. And what I decided to bring, I kind of have a bigger picture in mind here. So I brought a recording engineer into our studio, and we kind of turned one of our practice rooms into a little makeshift recording studio. He brought some foam, and we put up some stuff, and he brought all his gear, and we did the recording in house. And number one, it turned out way cheaper that way to not
Uh-huh.
be in the studio, but we still have the same studio quality mic. And we did that recording one person at a time. And I think there would be more need for a studio perhaps if we were really doing it all the group together at the same time. But since we did it one person at a time on their part,
Mhm.
really what you need for that is a really good mic and a really good engineer that knows what they're doing. And the space seemed a lot less important to me, really. So we did it in house, and significantly cheaper than if we had gone and done that in studio somewhere. But students just had a great experience, and the outcome was, I feel like, really good. And yeah, it was just really good overall. And so with that, I kind of piggybacked and said, hey, we can continue doing these. It's good PR for the school.
Yeah.
I've discovered that to really get the school on board is I need to be. I'm the only one who can relay the importance of the program to my administration. That's something I've come really to grips with. Is I'm the program is as important as I tell them that it is.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for instance, when it comes to these festivals and sending kids to all west and all state and all nationals, even the administration, they don't really know what that is, unless they
Mhm.
happen to have some background in music that caused them to understand in a deep way what all that means. They only understand it as much as I help them understand it. So
Right.
I am the ambassador for the program. So I'm going out there. I'm saying, hey guys, when we send this video out on Facebook, we're getting like hundreds and thousands of likes on it. So this is good for the school. I mean, y'all, we're exposing the school to so many people out there. And so trying to help them realize how good this is for the school for
Right.
us to put out these recordings. And so I've talked them into over the summer. We're actually doing some reconstruction, and we're going to soundproof a room, and we're actually going to cut a hole in a wall and put a window, and we're going to kind of start building our own little recording studio in the practice rooms that I've got access to right next to my classroom.
Cool.
And so my hope is to be doing that a lot. I feel like something I read a while back is that something like nearly half somewhere around half of people making a full-time living in the music industry are doing so behind the scenes, behind the mic. So they're not the ones, they're not performers
Mhm.
otherwise, and they're doing some secondary, not secondary, it's just some non-performance musicians. And that's what I've started calling it. Is you got your performance musicians, your singers, your players, and you've got the non-performer musicians, the producers, the audio engineers, the live sound, uh,
Mhm.
all these kind of people are take a lot of it takes a lot of musical understanding and know-how and chops for them to do their jobs, but they're not performing.
Right.
So I also educationally wanted to find a way to be training those type of people. And so my hope is already we've kind of started finding some people that think recording is really cool. And in 1,000 years, they would never want to be the one up on a stage with the microphone, with people cheering their name and singing or whatever. But the idea of being the guy recording and mixing and all that sounds really cool to them. And so I
Right.
want occasionally a place to plug those people in. And who knows? I mean, we may have the next, famous record producer out there, in my choir room that would have never realized his love for that if we didn't have some venue for him. So, for him or her. So anyway, just trying to pull in more people and more interest, and also the choir members having something to take home with them. Kind of like, this was our choir this year. They got
Mm-hmm.
to keep that recording and spread it and all that. I feel like is important to program building. So that's all, kind of stuff I'm doing. I feel like, we did have success at All West, and we had some All State people, and we've got some people who auditioned for All Nationals. I don't know how they did yet. And then, we won some festival. We won the ACDA Step Festival. We got a Superior there. But at the end of the day, I feel like our stage of where we are at my school is in a program building stage.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, really, I've had to kind of draw priority lists of what is most important. And my top of my priority list is what we do within the school. And so, for instance, our choir program at the end of the year ended up very, very close to the same time as the state ACDA festival. And in a perfect world, I would have loved to have had a month to prepare for each of those separately.
Yeah.
Like, in a perfect world where I had a lot more time, or even if that had a lot more emphasis in my mind, then for that ACDA state festival, I would have been bringing in other people to work with the choir.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing in maybe some people from the local University of Memphis and having them work with the choir and doing a lot more prep work for that. But however, because it was so close to our school concert, at this point, my priority is the stuff within school because that's where I'm trying to grow the program. And at the end of the day, the people that young girl in the chemistry class who is a good singer and who would make a great alto in my choir, to convince her to be in the choir is not to go out there and do a great job at state festival because she doesn't even know what that is and she really doesn't care.
Right.
To get her to be in choir next year, we need to do a great job at our choir concert, or we need to go to the lunch hall and sing, during break or whatever, and do those types of on-campus things. And so that's where the priority really is right now for this stage of my program, is building. And then once we've built to a place, then we can kind of turn our eyes out and look and go for some of those other things outside of the school walls and into the greater Memphis area and Tennessee and national, looking to conquer some of those stages as a program. But as of right now, I'm trying to get that little girl in chemistry who's got a good voice, but she's not in choir. So
Sure.
my focus is very local at the moment.
Yeah, and that's I'm in a similar situation. This was my first full year. I'm going into my second at this school, and so you have to kind of you kind of list your priorities and keep telling yourself you can't change everything you want to the first
Yeah.
year, which harder for some people than others. But um, yeah, I think that's great that you got your flight a cappella group now has that song on Facebook, and now they can share it to everyone digitally, and that's going to be a huge recruitment tool. And you won't really have to do anything; they're just going to naturally share it on
Yeah,
whatever
exactly.
social media platform they're using these days. But I think that's a great thing, especially in the area that you're kind of working in with all those, like we were talking about earlier, all the really top level contemporary a cappella groups or whatever you call them. Um, uh, who was the arranger of the or the composer of that um, the other one, the video one that you had on there?
Oh, let me think. Who was that?
I was expecting the Luckin one, but it wasn't. It was something different.
Yeah, no, yeah. Um,
If you can't think of it, that's okay.
yeah, I can't think of it. Yeah, I can't think of it at the moment.
Yeah, it sounded cool, but anyway, I will link
Oh, I
Both of
just remembered.
those.
Bernhardt. Bernhardt. Yeah, Bernhardt.
Bernhardt. Okay,
Yeah, and I
cool.
also wanted to show the video you're talking about it's much more in the classical vein.
Uh-huh.
I hate that word classical because it's not from the classical
Yeah,
period.
exactly.
Mozart, Haydn. It's more traditional choral literature, the type of stuff we did it at state festival.
Uh-huh.
It's 8-part Divisi, uh, and but then the song we recorded just like as a single was, like I said, a Taylor Swift song, a pop song. And so, I'm trying not to become a one, what's the expression, a one show pony or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm trying to push my kids to be capable of doing both, to do the 8-part choral literature divisi, and also do the pop Taylor Swift song with a beatboxer,
Mm-hmm.
and that is one thing. Honestly, that's kind of new territory for me to do such drastic things, because literally in rehearsal, 1 minute we'll be doing Lauritsen, and then the next minute we're doing a Bon Jovi song or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the stylistically totally different. The types of Honestly, the biggest struggle with that has been the vowels.
Yeah.
Rarely do I find them accidentally singing tall vowels when they're doing pop stuff.
Uh-huh.
But man, do those pop vowels, the more spread out sound, the
Yeah.
more pop sound, more Broadway type sound, boy, does that leak over into our more traditional stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
it just takes me beating it out of them. And so that is hard going back and forth. And in fact, and I don't even know. I guess I'll need to do this a while longer before I really realize what I think about that. I had a college professor look at my group and say, it's really not healthy for young singers to be tearing them back and forth between these two drastically different styles. But at the same time, I don't know. I kind of feel in my gut like it's really good for them, because I feel like for those who do go on to, let's say they go on to education in music, they need to be versatile. Myself, I do church music as well, and we do very pop contemporary worship kind of stuff, and I need to have those skills and ability to do that type of music just as well as I do. If I go, I don't do it often, but I've been invited on occasion to go sing an aria or something for, some, uh, for different symphony orchestras, even stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I feel like it's beneficial to me to be flexible and have varying, abilities and different styles. So I feel like it's good for them too to be able to do that. And if they go into the world of music, and I've got a couple that really want to go in to do Broadway kind of stuff, and if they make it and they do it, then they need to be versatile too, and they'll be asked to do very classical style of singing at times and very pop style of singing at times. And so, at this point, my personal opinion that it's good for them to stretch them to do multiple styles. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm still kind of new at this whole thing of doing that pop. I've always done
Sure.
I've always done variety, but about as pop as I would get would be. Maybe some Broadway tunes, or like choral arrangements of, I mean, some popular songs, but
Yeah.
this, like I call it, the modern acapella. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
just straight pop stuff. I mean, we're doing stuff like Adele and Taylor Swift and Beyonce. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
God, all this kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
so it is kind of a new world to me. I've really only been doing this kind of stuff for this year, but it's exciting at the same time, and I feel like it does push them. So I think it's good.
Yeah. And the argument is they're going to sing that stuff anyway. Like
Yeah,
you're not gonna stop them, so you might as well like influence them in a positive way to have it enhance the choral program and have them recognize you can't just do this only one style for the rest of your life. I mean, I guess you theoretically could, but the chances of you doing that are very small. You're gonna want to do, the quote unquote classical symphony orchestra and or the pop acapella. You can do both, and there's no reason why you shouldn't.
yeah, yeah. I agree totally.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite musical experience, either as a performer or an audience member?
Huh. Well, I think I alluded to this earlier, but I mean, definitely the one that sticks out to me is the first time singing. I believe it was Bruckner's Os Justi
Mm-hmm.
with that large group. That absolutely changed my life. As far as a listener, an audience member, I got to hear the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and chorus uh, one time, and I got to sit, man, just right in the orchestra, right behind the singer, right up there, just real close to singers and all. And that was probably my favorite performance to ever view. So those are
Yeah,
my
that's cool. What advice would you give your younger self?
my younger self. Hmm. You know, I as a as a learner of music, um, I think I realize more and more the value of understanding music as it crosses over to the other arts and to culture, and realizing historically music's place in the world and the development of the world as we've known it. And if I could go back, I would pay a lot more attention, even just in high school and in college, when I studied art, when I studied history, when I studied all those things, is to pay attention to how music was weaving in through all of those things. Um, Even now, as I'm reading, as far as reading, I'm kind of a history nerd. I'm reading a book called 1776 by David McCullough, and it's all about the Revolutionary War. But it brings to life to me music in such a neat way, just to understand what's going on in the world at the time, and so then to take my knowledge of now what's going on in America and in Europe in 1776, and then to connect that with what I know musically was going on in the 1700s. To me, makes it so much more alive, and so whereas in college, because I felt like stuff like history and the other arts that I had to learn were so boring.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't pay much attention. But had I realized how much it would enliven my understanding of music to be paying attention to what was going on, and then connecting that to what I knew about what's going on in music, because now knowing how different wars have influenced music and how music have influenced different wars and just stuff like that is so fascinating to me now that I'm connecting those dots. But I wish I had been paying more attention in history and some of those other classes back when, so that I would have more dots to connect.
Right. Yeah.
So,
So if any of our students are listening, when you say, "Oh, I don't need to know that," you might need to know that.
yeah, 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 absolutely. And yeah, and something I could tell myself is what I feel like I did well was just to think of myself as a lifelong learner. And I think at some point I thought, well, I need to get through school so I'll know all this stuff, and then I need to get a job with to use the stuff I know. But then I'll kind of be set. You know what I mean? Like I
Mm-hmm.
need to learn all this stuff so I can do this, and then once I know all this, then I'll be able to do this and I'll be good. I don't know that I realized how learning is just a lifelong process,
Yeah.
and so so I would tell myself, you need to keep learning. You need to always don't ever think of learning as a means to an end. Learning is just to get to the next stage, and then you'll learn more from there, and then you'll learn more from there. It never stops.
Yeah.
So
That's
don't get weary in learning either, because you're never gonna stop.
sure. That's great advice. And the more that you learn and the more that you know, the more you realize how much you don't know.
Yes, and there's more to learn now.
Yeah, it just keeps expanding. Do you have a favorite app?
I think I've got my phone here. One app I do enjoy is the Handy Recorder, and it's put out by Zoom.
Yeah.
It's just a handy recorder, is what it's called on in the App Store,
Mm-hmm.
and I found it to be the best. Just like if I'm recording my choir, I just put it up on the thing, but it's actually kind of a stereo recording. It's the best. It's the best iPhone recorder I've found.
Okay.
And so it just works good. It's got some very quick editing kind of stuff, and I can very quickly convert it to different formats, to a WAV format or an MP3 or whatever to share it. And so I like to record my choir often. I feel like they need that constant feedback of what they sound like. So I'll record them and then email it to them all and say, "Hey, tomorrow I want you to come back and be ready to talk about what you did good and what you did bad." That type of thing.
Sure. That's
So I use
great.
that.
Yeah, I love Zoom. I mean, I'm currently using it right now to record this podcast.
Oh, really cool.
Yeah, so I'm using a Zoom H4n, and I have my eyes set on. They have it's called a Zoom Q8, and it's their new HD video version. So it has a wide angle lens, but it has basically all the same components as the H4n. So the two different XR mics and then two different mic inputs in the back. But it's a video camera that can basically continuously record um, for like 2 hours. And so like most video cameras just kind of shut off.
Yeah.
This one just keeps going. Plus, you get the good quality. And I know this is now becoming a Zoom commercial, but
Yeah.
but that's what I want for Christmas.
Yeah,
So,
I actually saw a demo of that very device you're talking about at a conference I was at
oh,
recently, the
nice.
state conference. Yeah. Yeah, cool looking little thing.
Yeah, well, that's great. I didn't know that they had an iPhone app. I'll have to check that out.
Mhm.
So you talked about history and the 1777 book. Is that your favorite book, or do you have a different favorite book of all time?
Gosh, I don't know. Favorite book of all time would be tough. I enjoy reading. I'm a Christian. I enjoy reading some of the good Christian thinkers, such as C.S. Lewis, and so a book like Mere Christianity, um, Timothy Keller, The Reason for God. Some of these types of books I find very fascinating. So those are probably my two go-to books: is Christian thinkers and history novels. Like this book, 1776, is just all about the Revolutionary War, and it's big. I've got it here. It's a big, thick book. Yeah, it's like, what is it, 600 pages or something like
Oh,
that. So
nice.
it's taken me a while to weed through, but yeah, I enjoy stuff like that. A little nerdy, but I like it.
No, that's great. And I'll put a link to those in the show notes, and I'll send you right to Amazon. And then if you purchase anything that I mentioned, I have links in. Amazon will send me a small kickback. Doesn't cost you anything extra. Those of you that are listening, and that'll help support the podcast. That's probably the first time I've said this, but it's on all my websites and things like that. So I'm
Cool.
trying to kind of expand as I go. Also, this is going to be one of the first podcasts that'll be available on my new YouTube channel. So I'll make the audio available on that and put the links to that in the show as well. Yeah, lots of new summer projects that I'm working on.
Nice.
Other than music, do you have any hobbies?
Tennis is my hobby.
Tennis. Cool.
Yeah, yeah, I love tennis. I watch every major. We're in the middle of the French Open right now, and I'm totally enthralled with it. My guy is Roger Federer, and he's hurt at the moment, so he's not in it. So that's a
Uh,
little bit of a bummer for me. But I enjoy watching just as much as I enjoy playing. And my wonderful wife, who did not grow up playing tennis and really has no interest, the other day said, "Why don't you go? Why don't we go to the Y and you can teach me to play tennis?" And I was like, "Seriously?" And she is such a sport. She knows that I enjoy it, so she's trying to learn to enjoy it as well. And she's being wonderful, a good supportive mate for me by trying to
uh,
learn hobby.
Lots of love.
Yep.
That's great. Yeah, my dad is pretty big into tennis, so I'll play maybe one game every summer, but I'm not very good. I know how to keep score, and that's about it.
That's half of it right there.
Yeah. So looking towards next year, um, I know you're probably not even thinking about long-term planning yet for your programming. So if you are, you can maybe talk about some of the ideas you have coming up for the fall or the winter, or you can talk about kind of the major points from this last concert for your choir.
Okay. Well, yeah, as early as it is, we're already starting to think about next year. I have sent out. I have officers in my choir,
Mm-hmm.
and so I lean most heavily on my officers, and then they are kind of the liaison between the rest of the choir and myself. And so they are currently tasked with the task of getting programming ideas. So they're listening to the radio. This is for the a cappella group.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting pop songs and things that they enjoy, and the officers are compiling those, and soon are going to be sending me a list of things that they want to consider us singing. So at that point, I'll be listening through those songs, and filtering them through, the different prerequisites I have for anything we're going to sing, both being appropriate content wise, being something that I think musically is good, and that will also equate to a diverse concert where everything doesn't just sound like the same. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so a good upbeat song, a ballad, a good, whatever. So something that will allow variety. So we're thinking about that now. Um, as far as my concert choir, which does a lot less pop stuff and more traditional, about the only thing I know for sure they're going to be doing is Morton Lardson's Direton.
Yeah.
It's one of my personal favorites, and I've never done it at this school yet, so I'm anxious to do it. It was in my wedding, so it's
Oh, that's nice.
it's my personal favorites, and they have it in the collection there. So I'm trying to kind of go through and see
There you
what things
go.
they have, that I know they haven't performed in a while, and so I'll be pulling that out, and looking for I always try to find at least one or two pieces in a foreign language, and so I almost always will have one in Latin,
Yep.
and then usually am gonna try to find another one that's in. I'm looking at a German piece, possibly French. So we'll see. But
French is tough.
yeah,
I like Dioriton because that's about the only word in it that's French.
that's true. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, there's
exactly.
like that. There's like a whole like one line in the beginning, but then it's just
And
that
then you
word.
just take it on again a
Yeah.
hundred times. Yeah, that's true. And so I'll match that with maybe another Latin song, and then we did not do a spiritual this year, so I'm kind of looking for a good spiritual. So if you got any suggestions, and I can always go to Moses Hogan, but
Uh,
like sometimes, poor Moses gets overworked in his grave. So
sure.
uh,
Yeah, we just did one that's pretty new. It's Jacob's Ladder, arranged by
oh,
Brandon Boyd. And it's from the Dr. Andre Thomas series, but
yeah,
he was one of his students. Um, and yeah, I'm planning on doing that. We did that on the spring concert, but gonna plan on doing that for our concert at the Florida Music Educators Conference. So
nice.
yeah, and hopefully he'll be there. But yeah, Jacob's Ladder, Brandon Boyd. It's a
Got it.
it's a
Yeah,
it's
just
a
wrote it
cool
down.
one.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that suggestion.
Yeah, no problem. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I'm glad that our schedules worked out and that our kids are all where they're supposed to be, and
Right.
hopefully that'll all work out. But yes, was there anything else you'd like to add before we kind of wrap things up?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity, and it's good to talk with another Austin P alum. And yeah, so I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrew. Thank you for listening to the Choir Conductor podcast. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and leave a review. Go to zachthompsonmusic.weebly.com for show notes, an archive of podcast episodes, and free compositions. Have a great week.